All right. It's been a long time, but we're recording a CrunchCast. At least we're trying. Let's see what happens. Of course, I'm Chris Holden. That's John Jones. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Cool.
Classic joke.
Yeah, wow. Way to break them off some. So it's been a while since we've done this. Basically, I've been in transit for the past few months, and by that I mean traveling around, doing contract work on site with nothing as far as my own stuff, all packed up in one of those big pods, just waiting for a new place to live. And so here we are now. I am in Dallas, Texas, working at this VR studio, and it's been a lot of fun. You know, I'm totally in this big empty apartment right now. Everything's still in boxes, and half my equipment got destroyed, so I'm using this real tiny little weird mic. But the sound sounds great to me.
Yeah, sounds good to my end.
Yeah. So
the voice of an angel.
Yeah. And John, you're still in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. Just, I spent a year with Epic Games running the Unreal Engine Marketplace. It's a 1-year contract just to see how much I can accomplish, get stuff spun up, build out the marketplace from very little and get as big as possible and build it out to run. And now I'm back to freelancing. And in fact, the company you're contracting with right now, you and I worked together on our first project in like 10 years.
Yeah, this is kind of surprising how this worked out. Well, me and John were hanging out, and he goes, "Hey, I got this project." And I'm like, well, I was trying to get to Austin. I really wanted to get to Austin because I got a lot of friends there and this, that, and the other. But these guys just kind of came out of nowhere. They talked to me on Tuesday and said, "We'll fly out next Tuesday." And I said, "All right, why not?" The project we ended up doing, pretty big project. It was for McDonald's. It was shown at South by Southwest. We had 3 booths. They were all using the HTC Vive. Basically, what we made was this painting tool where you're like inside of a big Happy Meal, and you have 3 different tools, and you can spray paint everywhere, take a screenshot, share it on social media. It was a surprisingly awesome thing for the short amount of time and the small amount of people we have working on it.
Yeah, came together
fast. Really pulled together for us and brought it all together. Awesome booth. There was like a open bar there for we were there for over a week, and it was all day, every day. And they would run their booth from early. They have a short break and then run it till midnight because they had concerts. Because one side had a stage and a whole seating area, and that side also had an open bar, and a whole like food truck version of McDonald's where they were just giving out free food. And it was a little bit better than a regular McDonald's. What they were going for was more like craft burgers. You could actually build your own burger, and it'd come on a nice tray. So it wasn't like the standard wrapped up, what you expect from McDonald's. But man,
it's like the people making it didn't hate themselves and you as much.
What's that?
The people making it are actually just like, yes, this is a thing we feel good about people eating.
Well,
I tease. I saw pictures. It sounded pretty rad.
No, it was surprisingly good. I mean, not that I thought it would be bad. I've eaten plenty of McDonald's before in the day, but when you get to work a booth and they feed you and there's an open bar, you've pretty much made it.
Pretty awesome
VR
situation.
project was also recently on the Unreal Engine blog site, so we had an official post from Epic. Oh, you hear that beeping? That means my chicken that I'm baking, I need to flip it and put it back in. So I'm going to hand this over to John for just a minute, and I'll be right back.
Sure. Oh gosh, how long has it been since we've done a CrunchCast? Like maybe 1.5, 2 years. It's we're possibly slightly rusty, but we'll get back into it. Honestly, Chris and I have been, since we've been working together and hanging out more in person just in the last few months, because we went to Mexico to hang out for a couple weeks over Christmas and New Year's just to party and have fun in Puerto Vallarta, where the affluenza teen was arrested a few blocks from where we were staying, which was a fun little claim to fame. But yeah, the entire time I've known Chris, which is I think like 18 or 19 years, we've only met in person maybe 7 or 8 times. But in the past, like since December, he and I have spent like 3 weeks like working together and hanging out and doing all that stuff, and been talking about getting the CrunchCast going again. So it's fun getting the band back together, getting back in the swing of things. We had a couple false starts trying to get all this stuff recorded, where I honestly wildly underestimated how difficult it was to record video. I had to connect like either Google Hangouts or Skype, and then record both sides of the video and work out all the stupid issues of hearing yourself talk at a very slight delay, which is the most aggravating fucking thing that you can do. It's almost impossible to be able to speak and keep that straight. It's totally infuriating. So we tried a few times to get some kind of recording solution going, but it was just too complicated and too annoying. And frankly, the setup that Chris has been really battle tested, and he did an awesome job of it. So now we're actually back and able to record again. And that's a story of how Captain Salty saved the trout harvest.
Yeah, it was nice. So one of the cool things about working at a VR company, besides that McDonald's project, I've been able to work on other things. And the company does more than just the Vive, so I get to actually work in other VR technologies. Unfortunately, I can't talk about any of that yet, but hopefully we'll get some stuff out soon. We're hoping to get some things out on Steam, and more on the website. So,
yeah, I'm excited to see all that roll out. It's like for me, it's the first time I've worked outside of actual games, even though I'm still working with game tech. Because the McDonald's thing was completely done in Unreal Engine 4. It actually used some marketplace content from creators that I'd been working with at Epic for the year I was working there. So it was really neat, sort of having people from outside of games really commit to working with game tech and going for senior artists like me and Chris, and going like, all right, let's do it, execute.
Yeah, and we got to work with Jesse.
Yes, that was so awesome.
Figure Zero.
Yeah, we gotta. We should find out how much we can actually talk about in public, and then bring him on and then talk about what we can talk about.
Right.
It's the first time I've ever worked with Jesse.
Yeah, I guess me too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been around exactly as long as each other.
Yeah, it's just never really worked out as far as the teaming up goes. But this is just how the industry works, man. You're in here long enough, you work with everybody.
Exactly. And this thing came together so fast. It's just like,
oh, God.
They asked me to find people. So I thought, okay, like, who do I know that is awesome, they can trust completely, and is like available in this time frame? And it worked out really, really well. Like the press, the VR experience we worked on was great. We're like in Fortune magazine, in Ad Age, CNBC called the best brand experience of the show. And seeing people post on Twitter what they were making the experiences was a lot of fun, because they had their own hashtag for it and everything.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Rewarding as hell.
I was going to say, what they did was the setup is the company Keyshot. We had this thing set up where when you're in the project, when it gets done, the tool turns into a camera, and you take a screenshot, and you share it on Twitter with the hashtag McDigital. And I'm sure you can still look those up.
Oh, yeah.
And find them on Twitter and see the videos. Well, it's like it's kind of a choppy GIF, because there's a camera taking pictures of you. So you can see you waving around the experience area, and then it shows the picture you painted. Now, obviously, most people, it was their first time in VR, and their first time with the tools, so they would just kind of spam the tools around and have fun. And we had more than just painting. We had we had some toys in there, like things you could do, like shoot these things and something would happen and that kind of stuff. But it was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of people that would return, like come back several times. Once they found out, they're like, "Oh, I can actually paint in here. Now I know what to do. I'm going to go in and really try to paint something."
Oh, that's rad. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was cool to have the return people.
Awesome. I still haven't actually used the experience. because most of the work I did was off-site, and I was only in Dallas developing it for a week.
Right.
The rest was all remote, and I don't have a Vive at home yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. Unless you have it already set up, you're not going to be playing it, even though you're developing on it. So we had some interesting challenges working with Jesse's team, who were all in Brazil, and of course John, who's in Brooklyn. Like there was one time we used a Google Hangout, where one was a screen share of what I saw in the headset. Another was a screen share of a video of me with the headset on, so they could see me moving and how it changed. A lot of interesting new challenges for development there.
That was pretty cool. And I ran that thing off my phone from a cafe. So, yeah, like Jesse's guys were saying, like, hey, can you move around and do this or test this tool? How does this look? Because Jesse's team didn't have the VR hardware. So through the power of, Google, rubber bands, and duct tape, we figured out how to communicate across all the time zones and country.
On a Sunday afternoon.
It was pretty awesome. I'm amazed and pleased at how well it turned out.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there, 2 months now?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think I've been in that office more than people that have worked there for years.
Well, they're always traveling everywhere, and
not those guys, but I mean, like some of the other folks. But yeah, those guys are always traveling. I mean, they were out of the studio most of last week, and some out this week, and next week, one of the guys has to go do some more stuff somewhere. It's just always going on. It's very traveling, but they're a VR studio, and they do more than just game development. So they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah,
that's all I can say. I can't say much. That's the problem. I have to be super vague. But they're
I know that's
very busy. Lots of traveling. Lots of different types of VR. Yeah,
it's a fun space. I'm really enjoying dealing with VR, seeing how the tech works. Dude, Epic coming out at GDC with the live VR editing in Editor. That
certainly looks neat.
It's witchcraft. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were working on it when I was there. Then they showed a quick video a few weeks before. And then for GDC, they're like, bam, it's live.
Yeah, that first video they put out, I was like, I'm not so sure what's going on here. Because the controls seem like, well, that's going to be so tough to do. To get everything accurate and snapping in place. But then when they showed it at GDC, suddenly they've got all these working tools where the guy places a piece and all those little widgets, or whatever they call them, appeared around the meshes, so you could just kind of click and rotate and scale, and it was snapping into place perfect. It was like, oh wow, they just nailed this. So it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's like another problem with working with VR is you got to be a goddamn athlete. I mean, it gets you going, man. There's days where I was testing decals on the floor. I'm basically just crawling around, looking at all kinds of angles, and there were days where we just had to do big, long paint tests, where it's like paint in the whole area as much as possible. And there was one of those 3D paint brushes where you paint and it appears right in front of you and you kind of move around it. Everybody loved that. But painting one after another of those, it really makes you sweat.
I feel like in VR fitness games
that could be a thing for sure.
It's a fun space. I'm excited to see all the different intensive hardware, all the different approaches people are taking. Honestly, out of all the hardware I've tried, so I still haven't tried the Oculus Touch, but they're not shipping with the hand controls, which is, I think, going to be problematic. But the very first time I put on the Vive and they handed me the controls, I can't see anything. I'm just inside the default room. I have the headset on. I see the two floating controllers in full 3D floating toward my hands, and I reach out, and I can't see where my hands are going. But just in virtual space, I reach out where I expect them to be, and they're exactly perfectly there. It's like getting coordinated with it. It took less than a second. It's just I reach out, I grab it. Oh, there I am, done, calibrated.
Somebody tweeted a GIF I think yesterday of a guy, and I'm hearing some feedback from you of me.
No.
Basically, it was a guy standing there wearing the Vive, and they throw him a controller, and he catches it no problem. And yeah, it is that good. I've really enjoyed working it for that stuff. It's like, at first, you're kind of like, oh man, I gotta put this headset on, then I gotta pick up the controllers, I gotta find the space. But no, you just put the headset on and you see the controllers floating there on the desk. It's not there in the virtual space.
I can't believe how incredibly well it worked.
Oh yeah, and people love that when we're demoing, like handing them the controllers. Like, oh wow, like, they see the controllers come floating towards them. They get a kick out of that. And we had another project that was showing it South by Southwest, so I, again, can't say much about it, but I can at least say it was a horror project, because I know a lot of people talked about it. It was kind of the talk of the town. And a lot of people were there filming it, so there might be something on YouTube. But when we would bring the controllers over to them, they like float over to them like ghosts, and it's the whole mood makes them think it's spooky. Whereas in the fun McDonald's painting tool, the mood makes it like fun. It's like, oh, that's awesome, versus, oh wow, that's creepy. It's just the mood makes such a big difference. There were a lot of people, man. You'd see a lot of folks. They're tired. It's South by Southwest. They're walking around doing whatever. They're standing in line. They're waiting. They're all sitting there, all sulking, like this and whatever. I'm on this thing. My boyfriend's making me try. And then when they get done, they pull the headset off, smiling and happy. They're like, "That was so much fun!" Like they were not expecting a fun experience right there. They didn't know, had no idea what it was going to be. But it was probably one of my favorite things to see people kind of, I don't know, kind of out of it, sad, kind of looking, just waiting for something to happen in the line, just being bored. But then as soon as they put on the headset, they do the mouth agape smile like that. As they're looking around. That's probably one of my favorite parts, is when they completely change their opinion of what's going on here.
That's so damn cool. Hugely rewarding.
Oh, yeah. And after all that work, man.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good. Makes you feel like you did something.
Totally. And I love seeing people experience VR for the first time. When I was with Epic, it's a GDC. What year is this? It's GDC 2015 when they announced Unreal Engine 4 went free, and I was working the VR booth for about half the day, and I was showing VR to all the VIPs, and just seeing how people just immediately take to it, seeing the wonderment, seeing how they explore, and how they kind of learn their way through, like where they realize you're inside the experience and you're not just looking at a cropped view of a flat screen. You actually exist inside a space and have some kind of spatial awareness where you feel like you're moving around inside it. I can't believe that the tech has gotten so good that can just work like that. People have never done VR before, even people that have, but have only seen like earlier sort of immature versions of it. As soon as they see how well it works, like, oh my god, this is crazy. This is so different. And I think that I'm curious to see how many hilarious VR-related injuries start happening. Because, I mean, they already have like the kid leaning on the counter, just
falling over. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things they were wise to there at the McDonald's booth is they had big, kind of like soft padded walls.
Smart.
So we didn't have any problems. Nobody got hit. None of that. No big deal. But there were situations where some folks would strap on and just kind of stand there. Barely move the controller, barely move, barely look around. But dude say, hey, you can walk around and do stuff. And they go, oh. But other people would strap on and just start take off running. You have to restrain them a little bit. Luckily, that thing is on a cord. When it gets wireless, man, I could imagine people, you strap them up and they just run out of the building with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think within a month of having fully immersive, realistic wireless headset, someone will fall off a building and die.
Yeah, probably.
Like once it's there, 1 month.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, as many people that die from selfies,
That's true.
become a thing now. What did that recently take over? Like selfies took over like drunk driving deaths or something ridiculous. Not that, but it was something. You would say, well, you wouldn't expect it to be that high. No, it is. People just not paying attention, holding it up, walking out into traffic, stuff like that.
I saw a GIF yesterday of a couple taking a selfie in front of a dumpster fire while the fire department was there. So you see the fireman in the background. So this is from the phone they're taking the selfie from. You see the fireman in the background go like, "Oh, fuck these people," and then like angle the water hose just so it perfectly hits the dumpster fire, but also sprays them and knocks the phone out of their hands.
Nice.
Like just watching him, it's just, it's low res, but you just see him just sort of like go line it up and then joyous.
That is the best.
21st century comeuppances.
Yeah. So like one of the interesting things that I immediately learned about development VR is how different it is. Obviously, every medium you're working in, console games, you have to really load it on the console to see how it looks on a TV and with the controller, all that feel. But then with more modern televisions these days, they're very much the same as a monitor. So you get and the consoles are pretty much computers now. They're not like it was like back in the days, if you worked on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube game, like a game that was on all three consoles, it looked totally different on each one.
Oh, yeah.
So then the differences became like not as much of a difference between a PC game and a console game, except for a few minor things. Then mobile games came out, and they're, again, a new medium where it's like, okay, it's a small thing in your hand. You don't have the controller. And it took a while before people figured out, well, okay, like the slash mechanism became such a popular thing. So like all these games where you're slashing became the main gameplay. Or like the clicker games where you're just tapping. Like those became the main gameplay. So right now we're kind of figuring out, okay, well, what's going to be the main gameplay of VR? Like that's one new thing. There's a lot of obvious stuff. Then from there, there's like, okay, the visuals. Again, you were looking at a monitor. Back in the days, you had to look at it on a TV to see what things look like. Now, modern TVs are about as good as regular monitors, same thing. But with a VR setup, one of the earliest things I learned was to tell the bosses when we show them something, okay, and they'd look at our monitor and say, "Well, I don't like how this looks." I'll go, no. Don't look at this thing. It doesn't look anything like this monitor. Put on that headset and let's start this up. And they'd be like, after the first few times, like, oh yeah, and they just stop looking at the monitor for feedback because they knew. And you learn it really quick. You could look at your monitor all day, and it just tells you nothing until you see it in that headset. And just the way you move around things, the way it feels, the visuals of it all, it's completely different. So that's like a whole new challenge. And then from there is the content you're actually creating. I mean, again, like one of the things I've told people is like a first-person shooter. You've got to make a nice detailed weapon that's right here on the screen. But for the most part, it's just right here on the screen. But in this VR world, it's, okay, you're grabbing the item and you're rotating around it. You're looking at everything. And you can bend around the rooms and objects and really look at everything. So there's a whole new consideration of how much detail you should put into things. In some cases, it seems like that's easier because you just take the object as a whole. You're not building for an angle anymore. Yeah. There's definitely situations for that. I mean, there's obviously going to be VR games that are more like a static. You're just looking at this angle, but you can kind of move around a bit. Mm-hmm. But say like in the Vive where you can get up and walk around the room, I mean, you've really got to consider everything. I happen to be the guy that modeled all the weapons or tools for the McDonald's project. And it was a lot of fun because I was just dumping polygons in there and not really given a fuck because it had to be detailed from every angle. There had to be something of interest all around. It could never look faceted or low poly anywhere. And I don't know about anybody else, but one of the things I've noticed early on is normal maps just aren't really doing it. I don't know. Again, there's going to be projects where they have a nice effect on certain surfaces, or let's say you're on a rail and it's moving you through something so you can see different lighting conditions come around you. But if you're just in like a room and things aren't really moving around it, you might as well just model in all that detail instead of faking it in any way. But that's just my experience on this project. So it's
the systems are powerful enough now that you don't have to, like hyper optimize absolutely everything.
Oh god, yeah. And you have to be so high frame rate, because once that frame rate drops and you turn your head and it gets a little laggy behind you, people start getting sick. And another big thing that we had to change, well, not a lot of stuff, but chicken's done again. But one of the major things that we noticed was you've got to be very practical about your effects. You can't. That doesn't make sense to say that, but hold on, let me turn off this beep, because it's going to just keep beeping over my talking. But what I was going to talk about is the fact that stuff makes you sick, and you got to make sure effects don't make you sick.
So for my part, one of the things I'm enjoying about working in VR and understanding types of limitations that Chris is talking about is so much is different, but so much is still to some degree the same. Like you have to, still be like an efficient modeler. You still have to be like an effective, using materials and using software, like Substance. You still have to be really on point with all the actual traditional production techniques that you have. And I feel like a lot of the senior dev friends of mine have been in games for 10, 15, 20 years, however long. It seems like VR is a breath of fresh air where all of their existing skills can apply to it, but enough about it is new and interesting that it almost feels like we have an advantage over people just starting to get into it. I was talking about how our previous experience, like as artists and working in games, is totally fully relevant for everything in VR, and so it's still kind of fresh and new, but we're able to still build on skill set and things we learned before. Like what I was actually waiting for you to come back, because the example I wanted to get, at least for me, might be different for you, but like once you beat Diablo 2 and then start over again in a harder mode, you still have like all your shit, but
right. Yeah, I've got all my gear. I basically know what all these monsters do, but now they have way more resistance. Oh, fuck, I gotta get my resistance up. For those Diablo 2 players, no. It's like, oh man, playing through the Diablo 2, no problem. Get to Nightmare, you better get your shit in check. But once you get to Hell, it's all over. Luckily, we're not in Hell.
I figured a Diablo 2 reference would get some mileage for you.
It's a good one. As much as I played it. But yeah, one of the things we had this one idea for a particle effect that spins around the player, like it's supposed to be this magical color effect that just kind of happens, but when stuff starts spinning around the player in VR, it's like the room is spinning around you, and you're immediately like, uh-oh, this is going to make everybody sick.
I remember I was on that call where you were testing out for the first time. Your entire body lurched. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to try to. That was the problem. I was forcing myself to stay in it as long as possible to get as much feedback on it. But at the same time, I was like, I got to get out of this quick because it was rough. I mean, the effect would have been fine. It would have been great on a regular PC game or something like that. But when it's the whole world around you in a VR, it's nutty. And I heard a lot of people, especially at South by Southwest, they would say like so many of the projects would give them make them real sick, and they were asking in line, they're like, "Is this going to make me sick?" I'm like, "Well, we haven't really had much yet." I mean, everybody's different.
They're vents, they're drains in the floor. If that,
yeah, right. Luckily, I think we had a lot of people that said that a lot of other VR stuff really gave them a headache or made them nauseous. Like, the stuff we had didn't. We're very happy about that. But again, it's just one of those things. It's different for everybody. There's some folks that couldn't play old school first-person shooters because they get motion sick.
A lot of that was the FOV, I've heard. For VR, it sounds like it's mainly frame rate.
Frame rate is a big deal, yeah.
Like I remember, I remember when I was working in the office and we were testing out, the size of the room and whatnot. When you were moving the camera around in editor and I was in the experience, that was the most, that was actually super nauseating, lurching me around.
Oh, yeah, it's the worst.
All of my reality is just, twisting around. The thing that wrecked me the most was when you would stop the simulation and then adjust something and start it again, one eye in the lens would just, go down 90 degrees. It's
oh, wow.
Oh, man, I think I yelped the first time it happened. Can you imagine just all of a sudden seeing everything in perfect 3D, and all of a sudden, one eye is normal, and the other eye is looking at your fucking feet, just instant, no transition.
Yeah, kind of like a lazy eye effect, I guess.
Exactly. Actually, that would be an interesting thing to simulate in VR. I still think the insanity effects from Eternal Darkness and stuff would be really cool if adapted. But imagine if just very subtly you're one eye starts to go out of focus, or one eye becomes very slightly laser. What kind of cool, subtle post-processing effects could you do like that? Or
that would be some stuff I've seen a lot of I see this a lot with the immersion mods for Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Is they'll make some real heavy effects to the world and your environment, but they'll add option menus to allow you to adjust that by percentage, like a slider. Because sometimes these effects get so strong, it becomes a negative effect. But for some people, they really like it.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I like that idea, you would really have to include in the options a lot of control for that, because that type of stuff will be great for some people, but it will just murder others.
Oh, totally.
So that'll just for the business side of it, you'll get so many bad reviews if people can't control that, for sure.
When the first VR arcade opens, I know Starbreeze is opening one in Los Angeles at some point. When the first VR arcade opens, I would be genuinely surprised if you don't have to sign a waiver before going in. Just because it's so new.
That could make sense, man.
And so rife for, I don't know.
Anybody can just fall down or walk into a wall or something. You can even if you pad up the room.
Oh, totally. People just go. That's where I think so I don't know if the Oculus has solved this or not, but that's where I think the Vive does it really, really well. The grid that shows the bounds of the room fades in when you get too close to a wall or a surface or something you run into. So when I was demoing the Oculus Crescent Bay 2 last year at GDC, literally the very first person demoing it, they were looking around. We're encouraging, hey, lean forward a little bit, look down. You can actually, see over this object. Immediately, the guy just went, bam, faceplant, on a sharp edge. It was me and one other guy that were they're working the booth, trying to make sure that people didn't kill themselves. But literally, first one of the day, it's just near concussion. We all started laughing. I think partly because it was funny, but partly out of fear. Just if you see a little kid just totally bite it and knock out his front teeth or something, you laugh so they don't freak out because they're looking to you for some kind of response.
Oh no! Yeah, one of the interesting things when we were originally developing it, we built it to be this room based on a certain size, right? And we actually, at one point, I was doing some testing, and I made the walls at the exact width of the office we were testing it in. So you'd walk up to the virtual walls and touch them, and you'd touch the real wall.
That was cool.
That's a pretty neat effect. There was also a lot of demoing we did with different size rooms, or you would start in a room, and the room got bigger. And we had 3 different ways that happened. We had like the walls folding out and open, all kinds of things, just to see what worked. And most of it stunk. And one of the weirdest things we noticed is we had a room where it started you in a really tight 8x8 foot room, like a box, and that room scaled up huge, like a 32 by 32. Even if you know it's happening, you can't see it. Like the room scaling up around you, it just didn't work. And you could obviously find a way to make that work with a certain type of rendering or a certain type of walls or some kind of art, some way you represent it, you could make it work.
And enough time.
Yeah, and time, which we didn't have. But it's real interesting to find out the things that just don't work. It's something about the space you're in. But once we ended up going with like you're in an open kind of box where the walls are all separate and you can see through all the edges. You're floating over like a green grassy field, sky, and all that. Once we had that gave the user like a feel of relevance, of scale. So then the room itself felt big. But if you take that same room and put it in a void, you couldn't tell if it was big or small. Like there's these certain senses of scale that you have to build.
So like just a point of reference.
Yeah. And again, that's another thing with VR. It's like, well, this is something I've never really experienced before. I've built plenty of 3D games, first-person shooters and all that, and you do have to work on getting the sense of scale right. But it's just, again, it's a totally different feeling in the VR world. Interesting stuff. It's like, oh man, look at all these cool things I concepted of moving walls and stuff, and it's throw it all away because it sucks.
One of the things I saw from one of the initial VR demos I saw was so it was experience just purely on rails, and your character is moving automatically forward very slowly. But as soon as the headset went on, the experience started. Almost every person I saw in the experience lurched because it felt like they were falling, just because they're not physically moving, but the world around them is, just because like the camera vantage point is just attached to a spline animated along a straight path. Even though it was slow, even though it was roughly like, head height that you would expect to be, it still really wrecked people, even just very subtly. Same thing for things coming out of your face. And the one thing I hear is normal UI can never work. It will no longer work in virtual reality because it's like having something like pasted on your glasses. It has to be tied to something in the environment. It's all sorts of just interesting, very different rule changes that can only be experienced if you're actually in it. Man, yeah. I got to build my VR PC. I've been lazy.
Oh yeah, me too, man. I've still got my computer from a few years back, and it's trouble playing Fallout 4. So, but I'll be getting a new PC soon. But yeah, I know. I heard the same thing from a lot of people that really have trouble with things on rails. Like if they're strapped in and the world is moving around them, it gets really weird. Again, maybe that could be a thing where if the production was right, it could work. If the project was right, maybe it could work. Or maybe it's just going to be one of those things that people that start and adopt to VR early and get used to it will be able to handle it. Like it's kind of like strapping your head into a new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stuff that and there's so many things that your body, we forget, unless you've really studied perception and how things really work with the mind and the way your eyes fill in the blanks or with sound and feelings and sensations. You don't know what's going to happen. Like one of the things we had a few different things we've tested where, say, we'll have a particle fire or like a refrigerator door you could open or oven, that kind of stuff, and people would feel heat coming off of virtual hot surfaces, or like feel cool coming off virtual cool surfaces, and that was really interesting.
Wow.
Like, and that's just one of those perception things that, again, not everybody does that. And again, it's just one of those things. Like some people, you hand them those controllers and they are off. They're ready to go. They know what to do instantly. Like we had this one project where you had the grip to pick things up, and you could pick up things and move them around the room. And there was one where you could pick up a bagel and put it in a toaster and pull the little lever down. The toaster toasts the bagels. It all worked. Some people were just like, oh, they just immediately walk over, pick one up, and put it in the toaster and turn it on. Like you don't tell them anything. But then other people, you put them in the project, and as they're in there, you're explaining everything, and they just look around and never do anything, never figure out anything, and never will. And it's just something about how it all works. Again, I think it's just the same with all video games or computers. You set your grandma down in front of a computer, and she's like, "What's going on?" You give a kid a smartphone, and he's playing games in a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a matter of exposure and time, and like I said, it's really interesting. It's really exciting to see the reactions of people.
It's so much fun. Like I said, seeing people interact with VR for the first time and just seeing how good human interfaces are getting. Like just being handed the controllers, that was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my time working in video games. Just like, holy shit, this just works. And it makes sense. We've come
it's a big
so
surprise.
far.
And it is, one of the things about development is you have to have one of these Vives at your desks. Just working with you guys off-site, it was impossible for you to see what you've done. Like Jesse and his team were like, yeah, we made all this stuff, but we don't know if it works or anything, so just let us know. They're literally working blind. And I had the same problem where I was working on something local that was done. I was helping out one of our off-site teams, and I told my boss, I'm like, yeah, I'm modeling this, but I'm modeling blind because I have no idea what it looks like. I need to get one of these headset things that we're using for this particular project at my desk. Like, we need all this hardware everywhere just to work on anything, because you just don't know. Like, does this work? Because they found this bug I would have never seen. Just working blind. But so I'm working on something, and I got the Vive at my desk, and now we're starting to learn different tricks. Like, I'll set my Vive on the desk and point it where I want to look at something in game, and then I'll just start it up and look at it on the monitor and be like, okay, that looks right. And now I know what it's going to look like in the headset. I can just grab the headset with my hand and move it around, and I can see on the screen what it's looking at.
Nice.
These are kind of like the new, fast ways you learn to test.
I remember you doing that from, day one, practically.
Yeah, we've got this one thing where it's like you have to look at something and then press the trigger to start it, and then the experience starts. And it's just one of those look at style triggers. So what I would do is I would have it just point the headset at that trigger and set it on my desk. And then when I start it up, I would just press the button and it'd go right in. It's just those little things you start learning. And some of the testing things we had to do where, like the guy I'm working with, Matt, he would say, okay, hold the controller over here against this wall, and he'd hold the Vive headset, he'd stand in one position, then move it way up, then move it way down, then move it to one side of the room, like getting things to line up right, like things that are based on camera, things you look at, testing that stuff, man, it's crazy. And the amount of movement you have to be so physical.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it was like one of the things I tweeted early on was the good thing about working in this Vive is you have to get up and move around a lot. So you're not just sitting still all day, constantly going.
Yeah, like if you're sedentary, you're not a good dev.
Oh yeah, you're fucked.
Just like you're fat, you don't test your work.
Yeah, if you're out of shape, you're not going to be able to dev any VR. You have to update your resume with like your stats in the gym now to get a job. Pretty much, right?
In the interview, they'll pay really close attention to whether or not you make a grunting sound and you stand up or sit down.
I see that it's going to hit some people hard. It's different, man. And also, there's the other angle of that, and we've talked about this, especially with Jesse, is the therapeutic benefits. Like for people that do have disabilities, people that can't get out and get around. How it could be used for them to give them experiences that they can't do anymore or never could. That really interests me because, like I said, I spent the last year with my buddy who got cancer, and then he went from skiing and snorkeling and all this stuff to having to sell that stuff because he was in a wheelchair and knew he was going to be dead in a year or so. And when you're at that point, it's like, well, I know I'll never do any of this again. But looking back, I said, man, it would have been nice to have had this technology then, so he could have strapped on and maybe. Yeah, it's like it lets him get out of the house. Like it's the little things you see help at that point. Like he had a mobility scooter, which would allow him to sit down and kind of bop around town. Go to the park, ride around the park. Which, without that scooter, he couldn't get out of the house for the most part because he had a wheelchair. He can get around on his wheelchair fine, but he couldn't make serious distance. He's got to have somebody to push him. So with a VR headset, now who knows how far you could go? And the benefits of like when we were in Mexico, you had that panoramic camera.
Yeah, the Google Cardboard camera.
Google Cardboard. So you were walking all around town taking these pictures that I could imagine if he couldn't make a trip down there, which was a place he loved to go, how awesome it'd be for him to strap that on and kind of look around at, panoramically view the city he loved to visit that he couldn't visit anymore. Those types of things. That therapeutic stuff sounds real interesting to me. And I've read about people, they're using it for phobias.
Really?
And on that one horror project that has spiders, the reactions some people had was hilarious. Like, people would have the headset on, and most folks, you can tell, either they're going to go all the way through the experience, and they're like, oh, wow, that was neat, thanks. But then there's some folks that, okay, the first spooky sound plays, and they just rip it off their head. Like, nothing even happened yet. They just heard a sound, they're like, I'm out. Or there was one point where, like, a spider showed up. This little spider comes down from the ceiling. And they go, you didn't tell me there were going to be spiders in here, man. I'm an arachnophobic. I can't handle this.
Did they ever get the controller thing to work with that? Where if you swat it?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody ever really noticed.
Okay.
Oh, not swatting it, but they would have one that would crawl on the controller.
That's some evil
that was
shit.
Creepy. Because those controllers, they appear in your hand, like John was saying earlier, that you can, the interactivity of it, like I said, it's, when you start the headset up, it's sitting there on the counter, or it floats over to you when someone brings it to you. But one of the little things we had was a spiders crawling on that controller, and that was so cool. I mean, as a developer, I was like, I've never freaked out by this, but I'm like, that's cool. And just the angles that things can come at you. Like, things can come from above, and spatial sound. Like, you hear a sound of something coming from this direction, then you hear something from below over here, and something's coming at you from back here, and you turn around, and suddenly there's like a I don't know, it could be anything. Like, monsters coming at you that you didn't know were there because one caught your attention this way. And the idea of the 3D spaces, you can look this way all the time, but you got to remember to look back because you don't know what's happening all around you. Some of the ways people react is pretty awesome.
I remember you showed me the video of
that one trying to swat it away.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Because people think, well, it's just that immediate reaction of something's coming at you, so they start swinging at it or kicking at it. But you don't have any controllers set up for any of that. And I'll tell you, as far as the therapeutic stuff, we had a lot of people come to us at South by Southwest and talk to us for a long time about different. Oh, what's that? Oh. Yeah, that was the sound of the videos.
Fear.
This girl, she's got the controller in her hand and she's trying to swat at it and kick it. This monster coming at her. That was the best part of that booth, man. Because everybody in the whole VR section of South by Southwest, people were just sitting in chairs. It was like this. People with headsets on, you don't see their eyes, so just sitting there. But in our booth, people would start screaming and running around and yelling. So everybody were always looking at our booth. We had this big line of people all day. It was
awesome.
Just demos after demos after demos. It was ridiculous. It was so much fun, though.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah. And the only downside, that wasn't the McDonald's booth, so there wasn't food or water there. Damn it. I really liked being able to walk over to that open bar and get a bottle of water. Because you're constantly talking and moving and telling people stuff. Your voice is going out. You need hydration. Ugh. They had a little water cooler that was empty in a second every time they refilled it.
I bet.
Yeah, but it's still awesome. Just I'm saying, I just preferred the open bar booth. I didn't even have to drink. It would be crazy. You're in there at 10 a.m. People walk in and grab beers. I'm like, hey guys.
Well, the company's paying for the trip.
Yeah. Tell you what, man, Egg McMuffins for free. Ooh, not bad.
That certainly does not suck. That's pretty damn alright.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things. You can't eat McDonald's every day. People say, oh, it just makes you fat. Well, if you're eating a caloric excess of anything, yeah, it's going to put you in a bad way.
Sure.
But if you're demoing VR for hours at a time, an Egg McMuffin just burns right through you. I was losing weight. Even though every meal was pretty much, not every meal, but they had it right there. We're eating burgers and drinking whatever. Though mostly, honestly, I was going through easily a gallon of water. No problem. I do that anyway. But when I got back from the trip, I jumped on the scale and I was down 5 pounds.
Jeez, dude.
And it's probably because I'm used to, sitting and, I still work out and stuff and eat right, but just constantly going, constantly talking and getting dehydrated.
I'll take a lot out of you.
Yeah, it was a workout.
5 pounds, apparently.
It was all water weight.
And by the way, speaking of water, working on mine.
Hey, look at you, working on it. Of course, I've been doing mine the whole time.
Yeah, I've had mine.
It's
like house at beer, but
of course, it's nice, huh?
It's not the CrunchCast if I'm not drinking beer.
Hey, that's how it gets started. And then you can't start your day without beer, and then next thing you know, you're at your house just drinking alone, hard booze. And the next thing you know, you're not at work, and you're like, oh, I'm calling in sick because I'm hungover every day. And then you're fired after you've been at a job for so many years.
I thought you were going to say, and then you run a red light and hit a car, break a pregnant woman's arm, and run away.
Yeah, the John Jones thing, the fighter. That was one of the crazy things. I was listening to, not to get too far off topic here, but I was listening to some comedians. They were talking, one of the best ways to become get a job as a stand-up comedian is to have a car and to be reliable as a driver. Be the guy that owns a car and doesn't drink. That means you'll get booked because you're responsible and you can drive all the other guys around. And that's how guys like Jim Norton got started, because he stopped drinking really young. So he was considered a responsible guy. And that was one of the things they mentioned, because it's like, well, yeah, you have a beer and you drive, and that is drinking and driving. That's wrong. That's bad. But most people do that. And you get away with it because you're not really drunk, but you never know if anything was to happen. It could be somebody else's fault. Somebody steps out in front of your car, but you had a beer, bam, that's it, you're fucked. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have a car. I'll tell you what, dude, Uber? Just Uber it up, man. Just Uber it up.
Oh, totally.
There's no point in that business.
That's really interesting, though.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Hey, it's a good way to make it. Just don't drink, so you're actually the responsible guy.
It's like the first benefit I've ever heard to not drinking.
The first. In the lack of cirrhosis of the liver?
Overrated. It's just like mainstream media shit.
Yeah.
Just the cigarette companies trying to get you to quit drinking.
Dude, I think all those truth ads are just ads for cigarettes. Because they're the only thing on TV talking about cigarettes. If they didn't have those, there would be nothing on TV talking about cigarettes. I think that's their way of just selling cigarettes on TV.
It's like, it's bad for you. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Look at your sexy, gross lungs. Wink, wink.
Remember that one, wasn't on Family Guy where it cut to the guy just going, smoke?
Yep.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think when I see those ads. Hey kids, don't smoke. You really shouldn't smoke. Smoking is horrible for you. Like, that's the way it seems to me, honestly. But I can see, the forest for the trees kind of thing. And I know what's going on. I've been putting subliminal shit in games for years. It's all penises, but
It's been so much.
Yeah. I would almost say that leads us into that one question about worst guys you've encountered working with. Because we do have a list of questions.
Yeah, this is from back in February. We asked on Facebook what questions people would like to have answered.
I mean, we're already an hour in now. So I don't even know if we need to get into this or not. We could probably just wrap it up if you want.
Let's do a handful. Like whatever we don't get to now, we can do after.
That's fine. I'm still feeling good. I was just checking your pace, seeing how you're doing.
I'm good. I think I'm gonna grab another beer. How about you? Yeah, what's the worst office drama? What's the worst you guys have ever encountered over the years?
Well, I can definitely talk about one guy, and it kind of goes into what I was saying about how alcohol can mess you up. Like, I've never had any problems with it myself. Besides, I realize I'm had too much over time and say, yep, time to stop doing this, waking up feeling bad stuff, because I don't like that. I like to wake up feeling good. But I'm sure if you live long enough, you know people that are good with booze and bad with booze. Like say, hey, let's go have a beer. Everybody has, a drink or two and everything's fine. Like for the most part, John is a pretty good drinker. He'll have a beer or two and he stays about the same guy. And I'm kind of the same way. I just get a little happier. But there's always those guys that you meet that they get a little bit of booze in them and just Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They completely change personalities. You know what I'm talking about there, John?
Oh, yeah.
And there was this one guy I used to work with. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how detailed I go into the story. I know another guy and others that it's the same story. So even if they think I'm talking about them, I could actually say, it was this guy.
See, that's the beautiful thing about us having worked in games for this long. You encounter the same thing so many times.
Yeah, it's the same shit.
You can't pin one thing down to anybody.
So people out there, if I'm ever telling you some shit, I'm like, hey man, maybe you shouldn't do this to yourself. I've seen it before. We've seen all this bullshit before. I'm actually coming up at the end of this year. It'll be 20 years for me in video games. So
Jesus.
I've seen your... Dude, we had kids. These kids were high school graduates, I guess. I shipped 3 games before they were born. I'm like, well, that's what high school seniors are now. They're they're younger than my entire career. All right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think this one particular character, and it's one of those things you never know. Everything seems fine, seems great, but then he's immediately after work at a bar, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I just haven't got everything here, and I just need some help, some money. So can you help me?" I'm like, "Hey, no problem." But then you immediately want him to lose your number. Of course, I was wise to the game and never gave him my phone number, so I didn't have any problems. But he buddied up to a few people, and he ended up being one of these guys that was several nights in a row of, "Hey, I'm stuck at this bar because I have a huge tab and no money." So that's some pretty serious drama issues there too. But he also had a lot of drug problems too. Drug problems that he would bring to work. And
Yikes.
he ended up getting fired for that specifically because the boss told him straight up, he's like, "Look, man, we're all cool guys here and we understand, we can work with you in these things, but what you're doing, that's some serious illegal." This wasn't like smoking weed. This is talking about like cocaine. This guy was just walking around with bags of it. It's like, you can't do that in an office at work. That just doesn't work out. I mean, at least some people are wise to keep it in their car, right? Which I have worked with people that they get like, this guy seems tired. I was like, all of a sudden he goes out to his car and comes back like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go, guys. Let's make everything. Let's do it." Like, "Oh, I wonder what you were doing in your car, having a caffeinated soda?" No. But yeah, it was the same thing. The boss just told him, like, "Look, you can't be bringing stuff into work. I'll have to fire you if you do this again." And then it wasn't a week later. He's like, "Hey, what are you up to?" And he's like, "This," and pulls out All right. It's just such a facepalm. And the guy was always in trouble, man. Always just going to the bar and he would always get in fights. But he was the littlest dude ever. So I've seen a lot of fights and stuff, and I've done martial arts. So I've seen sparring sessions and stuff. But this is the guy that in my life, as far as one person goes, he's the most single dude that I've seen get beat up more than anybody else. And I've watched entire MMA fighters' career from their first fight to their 20th. He was just could start a fight on a whim.
The way you're describing this, I'm just imagining you just standing in the background watching him just get his ass beat for extended periods of time and doing nothing.
Well,
that makes it a lot funnier.
So there was never a case where I had to like pull people off of him because it's not like he couldn't fight. I just felt bad for the dude, man. It's like, again, he was the type of guy just get a sip of booze hits his tongue and he just becomes belligerent. But
some people just shouldn't drink.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like some people. He was probably one of the best examples I've ever worked with a guy that just shouldn't drink. And you drink and mix it with other things. That's doubly bad, I guess. I mean, shit. You can't help everybody.
You got to know yourself.
That helps.
Yeah, it's amazing the kind of shenanigans people can get into at work. I've never directly experienced that sort of thing, or a particularly egregious example of that. It's possible I'm just not cool enough to hang out with those kids.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. It's been multiple guys. I've known other guys that were basically alcoholics that are also coke addicts that got in fights a lot. It wasn't like I said, it could go for multiple people, the same story.
Oh, totally. I've definitely heard of them. I just haven't.
You're lucky to avoid them, but sure.
Yeah.
They're not people you want to be around.
So much of my career was in Austin, and most people there just smoked pot. Like sometimes at work, sometimes they'd walk out to the park or go between buildings somewhere and just, like just take a lunch break or take a smoke break, go back to work. But I mean, these were like weirdly high functioning people. It wasn't like people getting just absolute shithouse at work and punching people.
Oh yeah, and it's marijuana. It's people chill out on that. It's not like a crazy upper that just turns people into wild party people.
Actually, I disagree.
Telling you about their new business.
There's an educational film called Reefer Badness that I would like to introduce you
to. Right. Old school.
Like most of
all that really happened.
It was a weird time. Like as far as office drama goes, for me, some of them are so specific. I remember one company had an HR director just disappear over the weekend and delete everyone's information at the company and all the backups. And no one really knew what happened or why. It was just all of a sudden Monday morning she's not there and is never spoken of again.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that ultimately shook out, but it was. I found out much later what happened. I'm like, wow, like all things considered, you guys handled that extremely well. Another company I worked for, or with, I should say, there were several artists, and this was earlier in my career. One of the artists was trying to basically make himself a lead over all the other artists by being. So he's highly political. He wouldn't really talk to people unless it was absolutely necessary and unless he was correcting them. For the most part, he would ignore everyone until like the art director or one of the other bosses was around. And then like he'd literally ignore people saying hello or asking him questions until a boss was around. And then he'd say like, hey, I was going through your level and found this and this and this, and these are all these problems. And hey, boss, listen to this. I found all these things wrong with everything you've been doing. And he'd just do that to everyone on the art team and just suck up and throw people under the bus and just not interact with them at all outside of that. Just
I'm pretty sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's the studio art director now.
Yeah.
We have an agreement. Whenever we're at GDC or E3 and we see each other, we pretend not to know each other and just like lock eyes, look the other way.
Nice.
And I think my favorite office drama story though was
just real quick, I was just going to add that I worked with a guy that was exactly like that. Different guy, but he was the lead, and I literally was sitting at a desk right next to him. He would never talk to anybody. He would email me feedback, and literally he just didn't do shit. He just sat there all day doing nothing. It was one of those offices that had like free everything, snacks and stuff. He would leave, drive down the street to get a soda, just so he could leave the office for like a long time. And he'd like, oh, where'd you go? I just went to get a soda. I was like, for 40 minutes? And it was one of those guys that, again, total piece of shit that after all that nothing and things weren't working out, he went to the art director and said that I wasn't doing my job and I wasn't doing anything and tried to get me fired from the company. But luckily the art director was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I know you're all right, so I'm just going to put you on my team.
Nice. Well done.
It worked out for me because I didn't end up on that terrible Death March team that he was helping run. And he was, again, somebody that bad at his job is going to end up death marching you anyway. He doesn't know what he's doing. He was just some guy that sat there and nothing more. Anyway, go ahead.
I remember hearing about a company where one of the senior people artists disliked one of the less senior artists. And he would act like before company meetings, he would actually go through Perforce, revert his changes, and then he had Perforce admin access or something, and he would delete the traces of him having made any change, and eventually got this guy fired by breaking his changes every time they're about to go into a meeting to review his work.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, that was
physically changed the guy's work.
He would just revert a couple check-ins or find a file and break it, and then delete the check-in history and delete the traces of him having done so.
Here's an old trick I tell people to do. Put a small error in something you're working on. And then that's all anyone will focus on. And you can work on what you want to do. And by that I mean they won't gripe about bigger problems. It's like the old contract negotiation trick. You throw in some stupid thing. I know some guy told me once, he said he put in an inflatable banana. That's something he had to have. And when you're doing the contract negotiations, they don't notice all the other stuff, the real stuff. They just notice this weird thing and be like, well, why do you want that? It's like, well, I gotta have that. And if you fight for that, that's all they notice. So, and again, if you're working with good people, I don't suggest this because you don't have to. But if you have somebody you work with that's kind of a dope, that's always an oddly nitpicky person that only feels relevant if they give you feedback. As in, one of the things I've learned is if something looks good, I'm like, that looks good, man. Let's go. It's done. Next thing. As opposed to a lot of folks I've worked with have to always tell you something like, how about you make this subtle change, just make this red, this slightly different hue, like just something to make you do more work for no reason.
Well, the reason is they're showing the people that pay them that they're worth the paycheck because this is a level of detail that they're digging into and they're doing their job. If they just rubber stamp everything, then ultimately people beneath them start resenting them, wondering what they actually do. That gets up to their bosses and it looks bad in a performance review for them. To some extent, it is a bit of busy work, but people like to feel involved, but they also have to kind of have that sort of paper trail to prove, like, I touched this, I did that, to prove that they did something. And when you're like running or managing a team, it feels weird if everything is going too well. And it's easy to sort of like panic and overcompensate if you don't feel like you have a full grasp on everything or aren't giving your input.
Oh, sure. But,
I've seen this many, many times.
Oh, of course. I was just saying that example of, there was that fellow, we were working not too long ago where he always had to give feedback on everything, even if it wasn't his department. And it got to, what does that sound? Is that coming from me or you? What's that? Okay. But he always had to give feedback, and it turned out that he was giving feedback that wasn't, approved feedback, and ended up giving contractors more work. And so they had to bill more work to the people they were working for.
Oof.
And it was unapproved feedback. And he just made it look like it was coming from the bosses.
I've seen that happen before as well.
That's a problem. That's what I was talking about. The problem where they're costing the company money by making the people work more.
Oh yeah.
I guess your perspective is a different perspective too, but
sure. Like I was working in a company once where I was managing the outsourcing, and the creative director worked off-site, and he worked remotely, but closely with the designers I worked with in-house. And because I was involved in all the design meetings, one of the local designers was trying to work in a vastly more complex system than the creative director had approved. And he basically just made it seem like everything was fine, but ultimately the things he was asking for nearly cost $80,000. And I was just, double checking the cost and double checking the scope of everything with like a producer and the art director. He said, "Wait, no, we don't need 10 each of these. We need 3 each of these. Where'd this come from?" It's like, "Oh, I got it from him, from this designer who got it from the creative director." It's like, the creative director never said that. Oh, so it's coming from this designer. And so that was the story of how I saved a company $80,000.
Yeah. I think that's really more the perspective I was coming from.
Yeah,
I guess it depends on the studio, the way it's set up. Yeah.
Yeah, I always got to check that kind of stuff, and that's why communication is so important. Just making sure it's coming from the right places.
But even if it's not, like, if you luckily had that direct example where you could see exactly where it's coming from. But like in a studio where everybody's there and it's salary, if you're a nitpicky lead and you're making somebody work a piece another day, that's another day's worth of work. It's another day's worth of pay. That's another day on the dev cycle. So you're adding to the problem. You're adding to the crunch later on. Yep. You're doing just as bad as a job as an artist that's a day slower than another artist. But you're managing a whole team of people. So for every person that you're managing, you're that many days slower. One artist.
Problem compounds like crazy.
Yeah, it's nutty. And we've talked about that before, where it's like, it's hard to see a manager being wrong. Like the feedback on that, you don't notice it as fast as an individual who's just turning in assets or doing one job, where it's like, this person is just painting textures and they look bad, so I have to get rid of them.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this guy is managing, but he's managing bad, and we didn't know until the end of the project. But he's our manager.
Yeah. It's like if you're a manager and you're managing 20 people, say 10 are amazing, 5 are horrible, 5 are average, and they'll kind of even out depending on how closely you look at any of those components. And if you're a manager and you're realizing shit's fucking up, then you're going to emphasize the things that are going well. You're trying either, if you're a good manager, you'll try and get in front of the problem and start working on the 5 people that are just totally sucking, and find out like what you can do to influence that, and then see what you can do to maintain the 10 that are great, try and improve the 5 that are, kind of average, or just sort of let them, more or less hang out, depending on how time intensive the 10 great ones are. They just focus the hell out of those 5. But it's so easy if you were the one that controls the reports and controls the flow of information. It's real easy to hide and sweep things under the rug. And finding out someone just totally sucks doesn't come till way later. My role is, so it's like halfway between producer and art director, but I end up working with absolutely everybody. I just because I'm the only external facing person in a studio generally. And I deal with budget, finance, legal, contracts, everything. So I can kind of identify where in the system like people are just sort of sucking ass, and try and diagnose that. It also helps that I'm the person that, the quality of my work and how efficient I am or am not, there's a dollar amount associated with that, because I'm asking to spend this many hundreds of thousands of dollars on outsourcing. So it's like, something John did cost us $20,000. That is not something I ever want to hear. So it's made me very, very sensitive to like, okay, so this milestone is late because this person in legal has not signed a contract in 4 months. And these are the 100 emails I've sent about it and shit like that. But it's really easy at the management level to kind of hide. Whereas, like if you're an artist and you're just coming in slow, it's like, hey, yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of had this one example where I'm kind of getting feedback of myself from you. Just letting you know. I was a lead at this one project, and it was one of those things where I was a lead, but it was really hard to be a lead because the person above everybody just, I don't know, it's just a weird controlling type. So I felt like I never really got to lead people, because I'd be like, okay, here's this project, guys. I'd assign everything out. This gets done, this gets done, blah, blah, blah. Standard stuff. But then, end of whatever, instead of coming to me to see where things were, even though, here's what I did. I'm very good about paper trails, making sure everything is set up nice. Like, I don't, just because we were running to issues before, I kind of had to set up this system of, if I assigned anything, there was the paper trail. Like, here was the email. Here's all the documentation, schedule, all that, like you should do, all written out, sent to each artist. All the updates were all sent through, CC'd to the boss, all that. So there's the whole trail of daily updates, where things were as they should be, very well, tightly managed. That's how I like my stuff. And at the end of the project, the boss, instead of bringing us all together or just talking to me, he individually pulls each one of those artists into his office and just starts grilling them about like what's been going on. And just overall, just these were young guys and they just didn't know how to react. And just basically intimidated them into, if something was a little bit behind or whatever, they would just say, I don't know, I didn't know anything about it.
Oof.
And I don't know anything about all this. All of a sudden, he gets done talking to them, and he calls me in. He's like, you don't do your job. You don't do anything. None of these guys knew this or that. And I'm like, open up your email. And there was everything right there. CC to him, the full trail. I'm like, look, they all just lied to you. And they lied about me. Because you're in here just shaking them down and scaring them. Don't be such a dick to people, and maybe they'll be honest with you like I am right now. And then I walked out of the meeting, and I looked at them, and I go, what the fuck, guys? Like, why did you just all go in there and throw me under the bus? Because you were scared for your job? You're like the lowest paid guys here, and you're scared for this little bit of money you're getting. Like, don't let this happen to you in the future. This is how, this is how bad things happen for everyone. This is how, this is bad for all of us. It's bad for the company because now I know I can't trust you guys, and I'm supposed to trust you. So then I had to even get stricter on my.
It's like you fucking played yourselves.
Yeah, so then from then on, all the stuff I managed, all my perfect documents that tell everything that was happening, were all mailed straight to the president of the company. So. Smart. Everybody knew everything that was happening in the art department. I mean, everything. Like, why are we getting all these emails? It's because these dipshits fucking lie. But yeah, it's like, man, rough. That's a little bit of office drama for you there.
Yeah, no kidding. So that's about all I have on the office drama front. Anything else will get even more specific, and I'm
you gotta be
I'm keeping one in my pocket for another time.
I mean, I could go back in time to some old companies and.
Well, this was one, but aspects of it are still fresh, and I could get ranty.
Well, cool, man. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up.
I think we're in a good place. We can, for the next one, we can go through the rest of the questions. We got several of those.
And as soon as I turn this off, we can talk about all that stuff that we didn't name names.
Oh, totally.
Because that is what we do. Well, yeah. So hopefully this all works out. We'll try to get this thing back in the regular. Of course, we're both pretty heavy active on the Twitter thing. I recently started up a Twitch account last year, but I've been very active with it since I just moved here. I've Twitched like streaming the art I've been working on 3 nights in a row this week. I missed last night because this thing's happened and doing this now, so I might not get to it tonight, but maybe. It's still early. So, anything you need to promote or just?
No,
You're all set for the most part.
Yep. Just happy to be back doing this. I missed it. Well,
I'm going to wrap this up, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.